on, the referee. They're gonna stop this. They're gonna stop.
Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The second fight, the rematch between Femke Hermans, the champion, IBO champion, IBF as well now, and the challenger, Mary Spencer, who sought to avenge her initial loss about 10 or 11 months ago.
What happened?
In the first fight, Mary Spencer attempted to bulldoze Femke Hermans, bulldoze her through strength of arms, behind big punches, big shots, and all that did was get her outboxed, out-hustled and countered in the first fight. In the second, it looks like she tried for a more measured approach.
She tried to box more, jab more, move more.
She tried, although she wasn't fluid, wasn't sure of herself. I believe the biggest difference between Mary Spencer and Femke Hermans in yesterday's fight was poise, confidence, and control. Femke, supremely confident, riding high from her victory in their initial meeting. Femke was consistent throughout, whereas Mary, what success she had, what limited success she had, it was in bursts, it was in spots, it was here and there.
Not throughout.
Femke's approach was a lot more consistent and a lot more balanced, countering Mary Spencer whenever she tried to come on, then stepping into her punches, putting punches together, elicited a lot of respect from Mary Spencer. At the same time, we saw Femke Hermans do a bit of switch hitting.
From orthodox back to southpaw, back to orthodox.
Giving Mary different looks, keeping Mary guessing, keeping her on her toes. Mary Spencer, who as the fight progressed, seemed more and more unsure of herself and unsure of what to do.
Trying for big left hooks, trying for big right hands, overshooting it.
At times, misjudging the distance and overshooting it. Her footwork was messy, her feet were all over the place.
I don't want to be that guy.
Far be it from me to tell a professional boxer what to do, but I think if Mary would have stayed behind her jab more and focused on jabbing more, using it.
When she was using it, it was landing.
Being a taller, longer fighter of the two and using that jab to effectively counter Femke Hermans. There were moments where she did this, but not enough.
Not nearly enough.
That as the fight progressed, you saw Mary sort of lose her composure and try for these big punches, these big left hooks, these big right hands.
Times charging Femke Hermans.
Struggling to manage the distance, and I believe it's because Mary didn't use her jab enough. The jab would have opened up Femke for the other punches that she was trying to land. Left hook, big right hand.
The jab,
and more of it would have opened up Femke for those other punches, those big punches that Mary was looking for. And Mary is a big puncher, but she's greatly lacking poise.
Oh yeah, she was nervous.
She started off all right, but as the fight progressed, she was losing her composure, losing her cool, and it was noticeable. All that nervous energy as opposed to what we saw from Femke, who was quite composed, balanced as both the aggressor and the defender.
Good counters, good combinations, good movement.
She was just better overall, better all around than Mary Spencer. If I had to put my finger on where did it all fall apart, where did it all go wrong for Mary, I think it's when she abandoned the jab.
She didn't trust it.
Trust it to do its job. Trust it to open up the opponent on the defensive and service as a deterrent on the defensive. More usage of the lead hand.
The jab was the key.
Likely still battling demons from the first fight. That experience.
She was nervous.
And it showed. Whenever Femke Hermans let her hands go, you saw how much respect Mary Spencer gave her. Femke Hermans was simply too experienced, too crafty, too confident for Mary Spencer north of the border last night in Canada. And it's unfortunate because Mary Spencer, she ain't got all the time in the world. She's in her late 30s. She's pushing 40.
Where does she go from here?
Confidence shattered, riding high from how she had been looking up until the point she encountered Femke Hermans, who proved to be too experienced, too crafty. Mary Spencer bit off more than she could chew with Femke Hermans, and just psychologically, I'm not sure she can recover from that.
She was a great amateur, but not every great amateur makes a great professional, I guess.
It's the easiest way to put it.
Didn't work out.
Now that Femke Hermans is both the IBO and IBF champion, she'll likely be looking to fight the winner of Harper versus Breakhouse 2. Their rematch for what is Terry's WBA and the vacant WBO.
Congratulations to her.
She's just too sharp for Mary Spencer. Men's lightweight news, rumors abound. There seems to be a plan in play to put Gervonta Davis in the ring with Isaac Cruz for a second time as what would be part of PBC's deal with Amazon.
Early next year.
I'm not at all surprised that this is a fight they want to revisit. We've heard enough from Calvin Ford, Gervonta Davis's longtime trainer, that he would like to revisit that fight, that he would like for Gervonta to seal the deal, finish the job. He feels there's unfinished business there because Gervonta didn't knock out Isaac Cruz.
Do the fans feel that way?
Gervonta Davis sold over 1 million pay-per-view buys in his previous fight with Ryan Garcia. With Ryan Garcia's help, I have no doubts. And a lot of Gervonta Davis's fans, his supporters, they've been marginalizing Ryan's contribution to that show and its marquee value. But if you put him in the ring with Isaac, the debate that some people have been having, who's the face of boxing? Here today in 2023, in this country, who is the face of the sport? Canelo, based on what numbers he puts up, or Gervonta, based on the numbers he put up with Ryan?
What will seem like an isolated incident if he goes in there with Isaac.
Gervonta Davis's supporters marginalizing Ryan's contribution to that show's marquee value, its drawing power, crowning Gervonta Davis the face of boxing based on those numbers.
Like Ryan didn't have nothing to do with it.
That no, Canelo Alvarez didn't sell 1 million pay-per-view buys with John Ryder, and he didn't sell 1 million with Jermell Charlo in his last outing, but what he did sell, he sold off his own name alone, approximately 500,000 or close to 500,000 with John, 600,000 or 700,000 with Jermell. Whereas Gervonta, based on his own name value and his own drawing power, just his, and not his dance partner.
What's his baseline? 200,000 buys?
That the baseline for a Gervonta Davis fight, based on statistics and previous pay-per-view outings, the baseline for a Gervonta Davis fight and what it sells is a lot less than the baseline for a Canelo Alvarez fight and what that sells. How so many of Gervonta Davis's supporters are being willfully obtuse, pretending that that fight sold what it sold off his name alone, and that now makes him the face of boxing, the face of boxing in this country. He's not going to sell that with Isaac.
Forget it.
You can fucking forget it. If you think he's going to sell 1 million or even 500,000 with that fight, whether it's on Showtime, Amazon, or the moon.
Forget it.
Why fight Isaac Cruz again when there are other fighters he can fight for the first or second quarter of next year? Why not target the winner of Haney versus Prograis, whoever it is, or Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson? These would make for more high-profile fights that are more in demand than an Isaac Cruz rematch. Why fight him again? Why? I'll tell you why. Because he's cheaper and less risky than those guys are. You can't pay Devin Haney. You can't pay Teofimo or Shakur Stevenson the way you pay Isaac. He's a cheaper alternative than those guys and a less risky alternative because you fought him before. You beat him before.
Pay attention.
Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson, and Devin Haney. These are 7-figure fighters without Gervonta Davis. That's saying that these guys make 7 figures a fight without Gervonta. With Gervonta, guy who's supposed to be the face of boxing,
right?
They are going to want more. They're going to want more than they normally make, and that's expected. That if you are in there with the face of boxing, you're supposed to make more than you usually make because you're fighting the face of boxing.
Yeah, Caleb Plant wasn't a $10 million fighter before he fought Canelo, and he's not a $10 million fighter now, but he made $10 million for the fight because he was fighting Canelo.
What Jermell Charlo is estimated to have made in his last outing, somewhere in between, I don't know, 10, 15 million? He's not a 10 or $15 million fighter. He wasn't making that before the fight. He likely isn't going to make it afterwards, not based on that performance. But if he got that, it's because Canelo's the face of boxing.
Comprendo, friendo.
It's not complicated, but if what you're telling me is that Gervonta is the face of boxing and not Canelo, then that expectation, the onus to make all those fights happen with Teofimo, with Shakur, with the winner of Haney versus Prograis, the responsibility to do it is on Gervonta. Every other day, you're hearing people hounding Canelo with the name of some fighter.
Where's that energy for Gervonta?
I mean, they want Canelo Alvarez to fight anybody in between 147 and 175 pounds. That's the expectation. Why is the energy not the same when it comes to Gervonta? Why can't you even get this guy to fight guys at his own weight?
Why not?
You can't get this guy to fight the guys, the real guys, the good ones, at his own weight. So if he goes in there with Isaac Cruz, for a second time at some point in the first or second quarter of next year as part of a newly inked distribution deal between Amazon and the PBC. What you're going to see is a sharp decline in the numbers from his last fight to the next one, because you're not selling 1 million pay-per-views with Isaac.
Nope.
You're not selling 1 million, you're not selling 500,000. You might be telling yourself that, well, Amazon has over 100 million subscribers, and they can help to reach that many more homes, but how many of those subscribers are actually boxing fans? How many of those subscribers take in boxing matches? You were on Showtime. Showtime has somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know, 28, 29 million subscribers. The 29 million, how many of them took in boxing matches? I'll tell you how many. In the neighborhood of 200,000 to 400,000. On average, that's what a boxing match on Showtime brought in.
What do you think a boxing match on Amazon is going to bring in?
Most people subscribe to Amazon are there for movies and television shows and story-based programming, not necessarily sports.
But go ahead.
You want to do an Isaac Cruz rematch? Go ahead. You want to put him in there with a guy that he beat already? It becomes that much more obvious. You don't want no parts of these guys. You don't want Shakur. You don't want Devin. You don't want Tio. I remember Leonard Ellaby a little over a week ago saying that the fights that the fans think are big are not that big, but how big do you think an Isaac Cruz rematch is? What do you expect that to bring in at the box office? And finally, in men's super middleweight news, initial reactions to the official announcement of the David Benavidez versus Demetrius Andrade WBC interim title fight.
Good fight.
It's a decent fight. It's a good fight. I don't know if it's $80 good. Not at a time when you're getting a unification match between unbeaten champions, unbeaten titleists in Sonny Edwards and Bam Rodriguez at no additional charge as part of your DAZN subscription, no pay-per-view. What is supposed to make this fight so much better than that fight that you should have to pay $80 to see it?
Make it make sense.
What exactly sets this fight apart? It can't be Demetrius Andrade's massive following. God bless him. He's a crafty boxer, a southpaw, and a former two-division champion, but he's no box office fighter. He's not a big draw. Neither is David Benavidez.
He made his pay-per-view debut. It didn't sell nothing.
Let's get it straight. Benavidez versus Andrade is a good fight, not a great fight. It doesn't actually belong behind a paywall. And if it's there, it's due to a scarcity of resources, a scarcity of funds, a shrinking and perhaps non-existent annual budget on Showtime's behalf.
Bingo.
That's what it is. This fight would be better suited as part of a regular schedule of fights on regular Showtime and not pay-per-view, because it would draw more eyes as a regular Showtime fight than a pay-per-view. But given what the fighters want to get paid and the platform's inability to satisfy their financial demands, they get them in a ring. Their only alternative is to stick them on pay-per-view.
Hopefully the money comes from there.
That is their logic, their rationale. And I'm no cheapskate. I'm no penny pincher. I purchased several box office fights throughout the calendar year.
You right?
Oh, sure. A fight like Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis. Yeah, that's box office. Crawford versus Spence, that too. But this?
Not so much.
Reality. And over the years, if you would have had more fights like this one happening as part of the regular Showtime schedule and not hidden behind a paywall, perhaps that would have garnered more viewership, more sustained viewership, and more overall subscribers to the Showtime platform, to where PBC's contribution to it would have been valuable enough they keep them around. That if they were bringing in 1 million or close to 1 million viewers with their fights on a regular basis, their contribution to the platform may have seemed valuable enough to the higher-ups at Showtime that they decide to keep them and not cut them. The way it is, you get undercard fights and preliminary card fights as main events on Showtime, and any halfway decent fight, really, every halfway decent fight ends up costing you an arm and a leg. This is not sustainable.
So people don't want to understand that.
Ideally, a pay-per-views in a general sense, are exclusive to very big fights, big ones, really big ones, or they should be, because when you put a fight like this behind a paywall, less and less people see it. The demand for it, it's not that big.
Oh yeah, if you had it on regular Showtime, people would watch it, but that's because it doesn't cost them an arm and a leg to see it.
It's that much more accessible to the consumer, and if the performances are memorable and leave a lasting impression, down the line, the fighter's marquee value grows. In this situation,
it's a good fight. It's not a great fight.
David Benavidez will test his mettle against Demetrius Andrade, a former champion at 154 and 160, a former Olympian, a crafty southpaw, albeit one who's getting up there in age. 9 months ago, Samson Lukowicz, David Benavidez's longtime promoter, stated that David Benavidez and David Morrell had signed to fight each other this fall. That was 9 months ago. 9 months later, it's not David Morrell he's fighting, it's Demetrius Andrade. David Benavidez himself expressed some aversion to fighting David Morrell, saying that's fake news, and he would rather fight either Jaime Munguia or just, somebody else instead. That somebody else ended up being Demetrius Andrade. So why Demetrius and not David Morrell? Honestly, it's not like Demetrius Andrade brings that much more marquee value to the table. So why him and not the other guy?
Simple.
Why fight a young, hard-punching southpaw when you can fight an older, light-punching southpaw? They're both southpaws, David Morrell and Demetrius Andrade.
One is in his mid-30s, and one isn't.
And even though Demetrius has never been all that big a draw, he is at least a little bit more well-known than David Morrell. He has at least been a champion at 154, a champion at 160, whereas David Morrell,
he hasn't.
So you can more or less see what the hierarchy of thought was. Don't misunderstand me. It's a good fight. It's just not $80 good. Even if I myself plan on purchasing the show, I myself follow the sport more closely than someone else. As a content creator, you more or less have to. But Joe Blow that's working a 9 to 5 and's got a family to feed,
They ain't got disposable income to blow on this.
a long overdue step-up fight for Demetrius Andrade, the Olympian, the 2-division champion. A long overdue, meaningful fight that, if he plays his cards right, could be the biggest fight and the biggest win of his career so far. Can he do it?
They won't let him win on the cards.
Not gonna sugarcoat it for you. We know who the promotion is behind, and we know who the promotion views as the more marketable fighter. And it's not a pure boxer, a southpaw in his mid-30s. It's David Benavidez. So for Demetrius Andrade to pull this miracle off, he can't just win or do enough to win. He would have to completely outclass David Benavidez. And I'm not sure he can do that.
It's the truth.
Oh yeah, that it might seem like he's doing enough to win on my card, and perhaps yours, but to the judges,
Come on.
Demetrius Andrade might go in there, do enough to win, and still lose. And if he makes it a bit more emphatic, decisive, that might only get him a draw.
I'm lying?
Don't forget that Rolly Romero got a gift decision in the Marinez fight and a premature stoppage in the Barroso fight. That's how determined they were to keep him in the winner's bracket. You don't think they have that same determination when it comes to David?
That same rooting interest, that same investment.
Don't be naive. David is the logical choice.